Hi, this is Lao Wan. Welcome to my new show, hopefully the first of many. Let's get to it. This weekend, in a panel discussion hosted by the Brookings Institute last Friday, January 19th, experts discussed a new report on scenarios for U.S.-China relations and their impact on the global order to 2035. The report was presented at the culmination of a fraught week in the relationship between the two global superpowers, as elections in Taiwan tested the two countries' disagreements on foreign policy. On the Zoom panel, there was almost a sense of relief that the election in Taiwan was over, with the former Vice President William Lai of the Democratic People's Party winning a plurality of the vote. The panel discussion featured Dennis Wilder, who served as Director for China at the White House National Security Council under President Bush. He later went on to become the CIA's Deputy Assistant Director under President Obama. Patricia Kim, Foreign Policy Fellow at the Center of East Asia Policy Studies, and presenting the findings of the report was Connor Sale, a political psychologist who works at the One Earth Future Foundation. There was one Chinese expert on the panel, Ren Libo, founder and president of the Grandview Institute, a Chinese think tank. The Brookings report prognosis on U.S.-China relations looks grim. The report featured four possible scenarios. The first, drift. China and America keep on separating and crises are managed on an individual basis. Second, war. Increasing and escalated crises lead to an insurmountable distrust in political and diplomatic solutions until it reaches a point where there is a crisis to which there is no diplomatic solution. The third, blocks. Two entirely separate ecosystems, like a return to Cold War-era conflict between the US and the USSR, and third-party states have to choose between China and America. And the fourth, networks. Serious decoupling between the US and China, but no blocks are formed. China and the US break apart, but the rest of the world continues to mediate between the two. In the process of creating the report, Brookings also highlighted 5 key themes that its Chinese and American experts kept returning to. Mutual mistrust. Both parties do not think the other is being honest about goals. Differing approaches to engagement. Different understandings about the purpose and the goal of engagement. Persistent misunderstandings. Both sides report feeling that the other side do not understand domestic policy. And Taiwan, of course. The two countries' opposing stances on Taiwan. Domestic politics. Both governments are somewhat incentivized to frame the other as an opponent for domestic political gain. What was missing from the 4 scenarios in the report was the possibility of improved relations between China and America and a collaborative future. Presenting the findings of the report, Connor Sale stated that the broad consensus right now is that there is very little hope for collaborative and cooperative progress between the US and China, although he did acknowledge that it was mainly Chinese experts that thought there might be potential for a more optimistic future between the two countries. This was true of the panelists too. The American experts spoke largely of competition with China, of defending against Chinese expansion, of further decoupling, and of the possibility of military conflict. Former CIA Deputy Assistant Director Dennis Wilder gave insight into how the U.S. government creates predictions for the future, listing 4 key variables that the U.S. would look at to predict its future relationship with China. The first, the state of the Chinese economy, the cohesiveness of Chinese leadership, the readiness of the PLA, and the strategic vision of Xi. We have a clip of Dennis Wilder talking here.
But what we want to do first is identify the key variables that will influence the future trajectory of relations. So if you look at U.S.-China relations, let me list 4 variables that we would look to. The state of the Chinese economy, the cohesion of the Chinese political leadership, the military capabilities and readiness of the PLA, and the strategic vision of Xi Jinping.
Ren Libo, however, repeatedly emphasized that the Chinese people as well as Chinese leadership were open to collaboration, although China does acknowledge the new normal of its competitive relationship with America. He said that Chinese policy was far less set in stone. We have a clip of Ren Libo speaking here.
我们可能很难再奢望回到过去，那种在政治互信基础上的这种广泛合作，但是大家可能也都不希望朝着更坏的方向去发展。不管是中国的政策制定者，还是中国的政策执行部门，经济部门，包括智囊团，都认为中美关系的新常态已经形成，而且可能会持续很长的一段时间。而且我们了解到，美国对华认知的这个调整用了几年的时间， 从智库的全面反思开始，进而影响政府和民众，形成了相对统一的这样的一个社会认知。那中国目前对于美国的这个认知的定型，也经历了几年的时间，包括从智库、媒体、政府都参与了这样的一个系统的思考，形成了一个系统化的一个建构。但是坦诚的讲，相比较美国而言，中国对美国的态度还是更显弹性。也就是说，中国依然认为中美关系是世界上最重要的一对外关系啊，但是对任何有可能改善中美关系的机会，中国政府是抱着比较开放的态度的。
This may have been in reference to the increasing importance of China to the U.S. elections, where it seems politically unpopular to appear too close or cooperative with China. Biden has faced criticism from conservatives about his meeting with Xi Jinping, while the frontrunners in the Republican primary, Nikki Haley and Donald Trump, have both been vocal proponents of increased military and economic conflict with China. Here we have a clip of Nikki Haley criticizing Biden and his approach towards China policy.
Communist China is the greatest threat to American security and prosperity by far. It has stated its goal of diminishing American influence in the world and replacing it with its own. To meet this threat, there must be a series of fundamental shifts in our policies. Joe Biden has more than 18 more months in office. Mark my words. He's going to keep ignoring the Chinese threat. We'll have wasted 4 more years.
While American experts talked about the capabilities of the PLA, on the opposite side, Ren Libo talked about how China views American foreign policy. Ren suggests that America is anxious about China's increasing global power, viewing foreign policy as a zero-sum game, where an increase in Chinese influence is in direct conflict with American interests. He criticized this as very limited thinking. What was quite conspicuously missing from the panel discussion was the impact of the 2024 elections on the Sino-American relationship. Currently, American perceptions of China are at a record low, with only 15% viewing China favorably, according to a Gallup poll conducted in March 2023. Biden's relatively neutral stance on China may cost him votes, when both Trump and Haley are loud critics of China. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully, there's lots more for you guys to watch.